The award also honors 2 African activists this year. Phyllis Omido from Kenya has been honored for her fight for environmental protection and justice in a rural community affected by lead poisoning from an industrial plant nearby. Another award goes to a Ghanaian doctor who has pioneered reproductive rights in Africa. The jury said they recognized Eunice Brookman-Amissah for paving the way to safer abortion access. Brookman-Amissah has served as Ghana's Minister for Health and as an ambassador to the Netherlands. And earlier we had a chance to catch up with Dr. Eunice Brookman-Amissah.
It's a great honor, and it's a very satisfying that the work of over 30 years or so has been so recognized. But most of all, I receive it on behalf of the many women that have lost their lives from a totally preventable cause, and hope that it will lead to a better understanding of the issues and to improving reproductive health services for women in the future.
Now, you've been doing this work for many, many years. Do women in Ghana now have access to safe abortion, or is there more to be done?
Well, yes and no. Ghana has one of the laws in the continent that allow for abortion for certain indications. And the Ministry of Health has, with support from my organization, developed guidelines for making this possible. There's still logistic issues that are there to be addressed. But in general, women in Ghana who qualify by the available law have access to safe abortion services.
Now, when you look back at the time when you began your journey, how controversial was it for you to talk about women's reproductive rights?
Oh, my goodness, it was almost impossible. I mean, a word, as I call it, was not acceptable in any decent gathering. And but one had to do it. And sometimes people avoided me when I attended meetings and conferences. But I went time after time after time and pushed on. And eventually, I must say that everybody came around to understand, through the constant advocacy, values clarification, which helped people to see the issues quite apart from themselves and their own beliefs, and also sharing results of good practice from elsewhere. Women and men and governments and policymakers have all come around to understand that this is the only way to go, to review the restrictive laws and especially to make services available for women who need abortions, so they don't need to resort to unsafe abortions and die.
You describe a positive development there in Ghana, but are those attitudes, the old attitudes, still prevalent elsewhere in Africa today?
There are places where people still adhere to the old attitudes, especially on religious grounds. I would say mostly on religious grounds. But then we also have religious people, religious organizations, religious doctors, religious midwives who have seen that women need access to safe services, and therefore are willing and actually involved in providing services.
Dr. Eunice Brookman-Amissah there, one of the winners of this year's Right Livelihood Awards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And on behalf of the women of Africa and the world.